Let's talk extreme adventures. Mauritania's iron ore train is not only the longest train in the world, but one of the heaviest and definitely one of the most dangerous. The journey covers over 704 kilometres each way, travelling from the port of Nouadhibou to the mining town of Zouerat in the middle of the desert, and I rode it both ways. In this video, I want to first tell a story of what I thought was going to be an adventure of extreme travel. But in fact, it turned into something completely different. A story of Mauritanian hospitality and learning about a whole new desert culture. I want to give credit to these guys, the locals who ride the train, not because they want to, but because they have to. The entire video of the train journey will come next, but here is my story about the iron ore train. Right, so here we are. We've arrived in Mauritania. We've crossed over the border, which took us about 3.5 hours. Another complete story coming about that. Doors getting jammed, policemen trying to extort money out of us, And we come up over the brow of the hill and we see this enormous snake coming through the desert, and it was the iron ore train. The iron ore train is something I've read about, and I know a few sort of extreme travelers that have done the journey, and I thought, I want to do it. I want to do this trip, and that's part of the reason we're here, one of the main reasons we're here in Mauritania. First thing we needed to do was get ourselves to a little place called Nouadhibou, and I wanted to make sure that Sarah and the boys were somewhere nice and comfortable and somewhere nice and safe so that I could leave for a couple of days, because the trip was going to take, if all went well, it was going to take 48 hours. It didn't take 48 hours. I thought I prepared myself. I convinced a Cook Islander to come with me, of all people, a Cook Islander. My mate Zab, about a month beforehand, I was talking to him about the iron ore train, and I said, mate, you should come with me. And that was about all we said about it. And I flicked him a message a couple of weeks later and said, what do you reckon? Let's do this iron ore train. I never heard anything back. And then later on that afternoon, ping, my phone goes. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm really interested. I'm really keen to do this train. So he started searching some flights. So did Sarah. Started searching some flights, and we thought, wow, this is definitely doable. Not the easiest trip to put together, but definitely doable. So boom, he arrives in Nouadhibou. We go and pick him up from the airport, and it's very surreal. We're on our way back to the place we're staying. We got ourselves kind of as mentally prepared as we thought we needed to be. The day comes, we get ourselves to the train station. We're told we have to be there by 2 p.m. It's stifling hot, you know, really, really hot. We arrive, the train station starts to fill up, and they keep telling us, yep, it's half an hour away. Yep, it's half an hour away. Yep, it'll be here soon. It's half an hour away. Okay. 2 a.m. in the morning, 12 hours later, this rumbling down the track, and there's a big hustle. Everybody's jumping up, grabbing goats and bags and wrapped up packages, and start throwing it onto the train, ready to go. We look down towards the carriage. There's only one passenger carriage on the train, and it was just bulging at the seams. There was babies being lifted in by their legs. Everyone was just scrambling to get on, and knowing straight away there's no way, and the baby's crying his eyes out, knowing there's absolutely no way we're going to get in there. We had been talking to a couple of guys in the waiting room of the train station, and they were local gold miners heading down to Zouerat to work. We patched together a conversation. They spoke like next to no English. We patched together a conversation, and the conversation, it came up on my screen and it read, "Come with us in the back of the carriage. The wind can be deadly. You know, the wind can be fatal. The wind can be fatal." And we're like, oh God, here we go. But completely undeterred, I was determined this was going to happen. I wanted to go on this iron ore train. Climbed up over the edge of this empty bin of the train, and there was about probably 12 guys in there, all sort of making up makeshift beds, getting ready for the journey. Slightly nervous, but definitely pretty excited. Jumped down into the bin. Everyone sort of smiled and said, "Hey, how's it going?" 2 a.m. in the morning, moon. We sort of hunkered down in the corner, and the train lurched into motion, knowing at that moment that, right, this is it. There's no getting off this train. I was told it was 14 hours. I think I read somewhere. It turned out it was 19 hours. So 19 hours through the desert on the iron ore train. And if you can imagine, every time it takes up slack, there's just this almighty jolt through all the carriages. And I actually read later on that the train gains 15 meters in length once it takes up slack. So, and it just actually sounds like a jet plane going over. It's something like very hard to explain, but it just lurches into life, and away you go, and you steam off through the desert and arrive in Nouadhibou. It was crazy.
Zouerat. Arrived in Zouerat.
Arrived in Zouerat, sorry. We left Nouadhibou and we arrived in Zouerat 19 hours later. The guys that I'd met in the train, there was 4 of them, insisted we come and stay with us, because I mean, it was afternoon, it was getting on towards 4:35 in the afternoon. It was sort of starting to get dark, starting to get on towards dark anyway. Arrived at their I want to say hotel, but it definitely wasn't a hotel. It was like a room that they had sort of hired for them, to stay. And we just yacked, like very little English, but you can always piece together a conversation with these guys. They're amazing, Dinner started going on. We had this most incredible dinner. They cooked. We tucked down for the night, threw a blanket over us, slept on the ground, woke up the next day I was pretty keen to explore Zouerat, so off we went. They took us for a wander through town. Wanted to get a little bit more prepared for the ride home, so because it was tough. Like, it was probably one of the toughest things I've ever done. The empty train there was tough. It was like really hard to explain. Really tough on the body, hard, cold, that chills you to the bone. So I wanted to be a little bit more prepared. So went into town, wanted to buy a new blanket because I didn't have a blanket. And on the way there, just going back a little bit, on the way there, I actually had a set of ski goggles, because I've been told you must have ski goggles. It just penetrates you and goes all through your eyes. But because all these guys that we were with in the train, these guys, I mean, some of them didn't even have any shoes. So the last thing I was going to do was pull out a pair of ski goggles. So I thought, nah, just tough it out. Let's just tough it out with these guys. So my eyes were full of iron ore, with these brand new ski goggles sitting in my bag. But I was determined to not break. I wanted to do it with the locals. So off into town, bought a brand new blanket for the journey home. And immediately what was going through my mind was, I don't want to take this brand new blanket on the train, wreck it, and then actually sort of give it away at the end. So I convinced them to swap my new blanket for their old blanket. And it took me about 20 minutes for them to understand what I was going on about. They finally found it very hard to accept, but in the end, I handed over my new blanket to them. It's the least I could do. They wouldn't take any money. They wouldn't let me give them anything. So I thought the least I can do is spend a little bit of money in the town, buy some water, get some bits and pieces to travel back with, and buy a new blanket. So gave them the new blanket, got the old blanket. By then it was getting on towards lunchtime, and I said, what time's the train leave? And they said, 12 o'clock. And I said, you know, it's 12 o'clock now. And they're like, yeah, it's all good. So anyway, we, after a while, loaded up the stuff, got into a taxi, started heading towards where I thought the train was going to meet us, which was just out of Zouerat, sort of. It actually turned out to be like 25 kilometers out of Zouerat. And then the checkpoints. We started going through checkpoints. I think we went through 3 in the end, and they all wanted our passports and that sort of thing. My mate sort of got out and went into the police little hut with them because they wanted photocopies and all that sort of thing, which I didn't have. Rookie mistake. I should have taken. I had photocopies back in the bus, but I didn't take them with me. Anyway, long story short, we made it to this patch of desert with a train track running through it, and there was nothing there, so we sat and waited. And next minute, a few carriages rolled in, came shunting in, the train disconnected and off it went. And then all of a sudden, here comes the big iron ore train, comes in, connects up, and so from that moment you've got about 5 minutes, I think, to get yourself up into the carriage and get yourself sort of sorted. So Zab and I scrambled up the side, said our goodbyes to our good man, and settled in for the night. And I tell you what, the ride back on top of the iron ore, we left Zouerat at about 3:30 that afternoon. It was really hot, but the ride back on the iron ore train was really comfortable. I mean, I don't know, yeah, it was actually quite relaxing. We sat up on the top, we sort of dug ourselves in, watched the sun go down, watched the moon come up. It was a full moon. It was amazing. Like, it was probably one of the coolest things I've experienced. I've experienced many things in my life, but this was pretty amazing. Watched the full moon come over us. It stopped a few times during the night. Had a guard from the passenger carriage who a couple of times tried to hassle me to get a bit of money out of us, but I pretended I couldn't understand what he was saying, shook his hand. He kept saying, I kept saying, oh, do you need the time? Do you want the time? I mean, I just, yeah. So he didn't get anything out of me.
So he was asking for your watch, or?
Yeah, no, I thought he was asking for a watch, I thought he was asking for money, and I said, nah, I haven't got any money. And then he kept going like this. So I thought he's either wants my watch, but I didn't have a watch. So I just said to him, oh, do you want the time? Do you want the time? And then the train lurches into gear, and then they sort of scurry off and go and jump in their carriage again. A couple of hours later, the train stops again, and we go through the same process again. 2 guys get up, start asking for money. Not aggressive or anything. I think they were just trying their luck, opportunists. They never got anything. So off we go, off into the desert. Got a couple of hours sleep, which was amazing. And then woke up, watched the sun come up as we were coming into Zouerat, about 2 hours out of Nouadhibou, sorry. Watched the sun come up, could see the water, knew we were close, and yeah, what an achievement. We rolled into Nouadhibou at about 7:30, 8 o'clock, and whole lineup of taxis all wanting to give you a ride. You will hop off the train by this stage looking exactly like all the locals. You're just covered from head to toe in iron ore.
And then they unloaded all the goats.
Yeah, and then we actually jumped in a taxi, and he went racing up the length of the train, and we're like, where are you going? He goes, oh, my friend's up here unloading some goats. So we ended up helping them unload about 20 goats, or maybe 20 or 30 goats out of the
empty garage.
No, it was loaded. It was a loaded wagon. So we helped him unload all his goats out of the carriage onto the ground, and we herded them together for the guy. And then we jumped to the taxi and headed back to Victor's place. We'll tell you a little bit more about Victor. That's another whole story, Victor. But
So
that was
there
it.
you go. That is
That
the
was it.
story. That is.
It doesn't cost you anything. It's extremely dangerous. I wouldn't suggest it to anyone that it's not mentally and physically prepared. It's a tough journey. Most people just do it one way loaded. But I thought, bugger it, yeah, I'm going to go all in. Let's do it both ways.
And so before you wrap up, what do you actually think? Because we were thinking the next video that we're going to do is going to actually show the train adventure, right?
Yes.
But
Yep.
what you discovered from doing this was actually that it was less about the train and more about...
It was, like...
It became less about the train journey
and
more about...
Because it appears that it's a real extreme adventure thing for, for out there travellers to go and do. But I tell you what, you're very quickly humbled because the people you meet, if you choose to do it empty... it's completely different to come back loaded because you don't meet many people, but to take it empty out to Zouerat, you end up meeting a group of local people that you can't help but be humbled by these guys, because this is not a joy. Yeah, this is not an adventure sport to them. This is not a journey. This is their way of life. Like, you can see that these guys were on the train because they had to get back to Zouerat to work. They were loading their gear into the trains. It was just, it's incredibly humbling. So all my respect goes out to them. I was there. I chose to be there. They didn't choose to be there. This was their ride. Some of them, this was their ride home. This is their ride back to their wives and children.
And so one last question for you are you looking forward to sharing the actual video and showing the story?
I can't wait. I can't wait to show everybody because it's so hard to explain.
But I've got one last question before we actually wrap up. Would you do it again?
I would do it again in a heartbeat. It was tough, but I would absolutely do it again in a heartbeat.